Hello, fellow Toastmasters. Dynamic leadership and changing trends. Under this podcast series, this is the next episode. This is about negotiations and collaborations. So let's start. If you ask what is the most powerful part of human body, you will get different answers. Some people will say brain because that's how we think. Some people will say strength, hands. Some will say courage, like your all the body posture. Those are the most powerful. I will tell you one thing. Most powerful part of human body is surprisingly its tongue. Our tongue. That's the most powerful part. If you study the human history, most of the major wars are started or stopped using tongue. We know there are brave soldiers. They go and do the wars on the war ground. But do you know how the wars are won? They are won in the war room, not on the war ground. Those diplomats using their tongue, they decide the outcome of the wars. Even you see sometimes some army may be very powerful, but the diplomacy that change. So that's how the important is our tongue. It can start the war, it can stop the war. So let's come to the point. This highlights the importance of communication, negotiations in the life cycle of the project. We have already quoted this. Life is not a war. Life is a project. Let's lead it. If you want to do a great leading of your project, you must have good communication and negotiations. Collaboration will happen if your negotiations and communication is good. So that's how all these things are important. As usual, there are plethora of books are available which explains about negotiations theories and collaboration theories. We are not going into the books. This will be our one-to-one discussion. We now highlighted the importance of communications and negotiations. They both go hand in hand. And we explained that all the wars and everything are majorly depends upon how the diplomacy works or how you best to negotiate. If you study all the wars, let's see what happens after that. Somebody wins, somebody lose. I'm asking what happens after that. What they do? Treaty. They both sides come together, they make a treaty. In the changing trends, we have now tools available using AI. If you feed the parameters to a machine learning model, AI model, it will predict you. Depends upon the parameters, it will tell you that if you go for war, then this will happen, or you don't need to fight any war. I mean, that's a great advantage we have now. So it will simulate for you and it will tell you how you can make the treaty. So we don't need to waste resources on war or anything. It is easier. So we can make the treaty or best negotiation, and that's will be driving the our things. So how we do the negotiation? So life is a project. So let's start with the different phases of the project. Before going there, let's, as usual, we'll go into the history, how the certain great negotiations were happened, or certain examples of great negotiations or great diplomacy had happened. As usual, I will go with my examples. So those are my favorites. So if you have heard my previous episode, so I generally give those three examples because I see all the model of everything else in these three examples. King Alexander, he was an exemplary leader. He had his personal traits so that everybody, he has a great message. He was able to produce the motivation, but you must negotiate and collaborate. That's how he won the wars, or he came, he saw, he won. We saw several times war was not fought. So that was not, that time there was no AI or machine learning, but we have seen that King Alexander has won the wars, but there was no fighting. He came, he saw, he won. And there were negotiations and there were collaboration. He had a message of unifying the cultures, unifying the society. That's how he was very successful, because we know before him there were several Greco-Roman empires try to win the silk routes. They were trying to acquire the sovereignty over the silk route or silk trade, but they couldn't beat the Persian Empire. But Alexander was able to do that. So because he had a great message and it was collaborated, he had all the previous quality I talked about. And including the collaboration, there are several examples. We are not going into that, but if you study the history, how he collaborated with the different cultures, the examples are there. Next example. Again, it's Genghis Khan. So he, although we don't exactly very authoritatively, there are no stories about certain the way we had with Alexander's. There are not those details, but we definitely understand it was not just the leadership, motivation, or bravery. There were negotiation and collaboration was also there. If you go to the folk tales and certain kind of things, regional level stories, it will tell you how the collaboration was happening, and that's how the great empire was formed. Third thing about the Christopher Columbus, although we see that he tried to negotiate the best, like he told he was supposed to be the admiral of the ocean, he will be the owner of the land, 30% and whatever that terms of negotiations were there. And it was really at that time, we understand the situation that there was war on, and then the empire was not really able to do certain things. But they just like agreed to that, like okay, we will agree with your negotiation. So negotiation happened. It was not like, and he, based upon the future negotiation, he went through it and he carried it through. It was vision and persistence, everything was there, and including that he did the collaboration, negotiation and collaboration as well. So sometimes even the his negotiation did not, I mean, did not materialize. That's what we see, but that doesn't reduce the importance of the negotiations. So negotiation and collaboration was always part of the thing. Okay, so now let's start with the current project level discussion. That's what is our topic. So we will be talking about the corporate and project and how we do negotiation and collaboration. So modern times also there are several examples are there how the negotiations are happened or how the collaboration has happened and the best results are achieved. If you go to the all the phases of the project life cycle, negotiation and collaboration is part of everything. I want to give the example of this. If you study the Project Management Institute, they have defined the phases of the projects, and each project has different processes associated with it, and each process has input, tools, technique, and output, which they call ITTO: input, tools, technique, and output. So every the phases starts with like a start of the project, initiation, then you can say scoping. The different phases goes with like quality, then risk, then so scheduling. All those phases are there. Are 7 phases are there. point, I'm not trying to give you the name of the phases. What I'm trying to tell you that each phase has its unique processes and input tools technique, ITTO, but every phase has negotiation and collaboration is part of that. So that's what I'm trying to highlight here. Let's see, when the project starts, the project sponsor will initiate a project charter and he will give the high level idea about what the project is about. Then they will select the project manager. When project manager is selected, the negotiation and collaboration starts from that point. Project manager first has to identify, very important step, identify all the stakeholders. We think that project will be successful based upon how you execute it or how best you have scoped it or how best you did the work breakdown structure and how best you did the risk analysis, quality analysis. Absolutely correct. But stakeholder identification is extremely important, or it's almost called, you can call it the backbone, because they will drive you the project. They have to give the requirements. And unless we understand the requirements, we have to understand different stakeholders may have a conflicting requirements as well, or same requirement, conflicting views are also possible. So depending upon the influence of that stakeholder on the project manager has to walk a very tight rope and make sure that every stakeholder has been correctly addressed, correctly communicated, very regularly communicated with the status, and he has a buy-in from the all the important stakeholders, how they are identified at the start. When you go to start the project, then scoping, work breakdown structure, uh, then risk analysis, quality analysis, every phase you will see you have to you have to make the negotiation and collaboration. Because if you start the project and start work, when you identify the resources, that's where you start with the negotiation. Because resources, we understand there are different types of resources, like some are the material resources and some are the human resources. So material resources, when they will be available, that's how you have your scheduling takes place, because your work breakdown structure will be associated with that. You have to negotiate with your servicing agents and everything, so that you have to have a very good collaboration with them. um, they got approved vendor list, so you have the approved vendor, so that if something happens, the other vendor come. Like, I mean, those are all the things we understand, how they negotiate and how the collaboration takes place. So those are, if you see each and every phase, it will be very importantly, it has been it was addressed. If when like a in IT projects, we must know that we need to get the resources, and then there are like functional organization, and you project manager has to go to functional lead and then negotiate the resources. So those, then that's how his work breakdown structure will take place. How that's how his scheduling will take place. That's how he will be scope. That's how he has to scope, and then timeline, associated timeline, then cost, and then it will be uh, uh, it will be the risk analysis, and all the other phases will be depending upon the uh, different phases. So each and every phase you have to do the negotiation and collaboration. I'm sorry, quality management, only one part. Please don't do any negotiation. Quality should be the perfect. All other parts, there will be negotiation and collaboration will be there. We know our admiral of the space, our Elon Musk, he did not compromise anything, and that's how we see the great leadership came through. So he made sure that the product we develop is correct and accepted. So once he has accepted it, that's what is the those are his criteria. All right, so we saw the project management, all the phases, and how they have been related, and how we calculate the things. Not only the inside the thing, we have to negotiate with the external stakeholders as well, depending upon what kind of project is this. So if it is a financial project, for example, there are uh, there are external stakeholders, like you have the Wall Street, there are the rating agencies are there, so you have to negotiate with them, because depends upon their depending upon that, negotiation and collaboration, the success of the project goes through. We have seen the examples that if the external agencies can influence the thing and then project successful or not successful status can happen. If so, CEO and this will be those kind of negotiations are done at the CEO, CFO level, but other project managers may not be doing that. But those I'm just trying to highlight that those external stakeholders will be also part of the part of the negotiation and collaboration. Unless you have a collaboration from the different teams, best results are not possible. Because if you are not getting some requirement from some stakeholder or some stakeholder is absent or your communication plan is not correct, some stakeholder said that, okay, I did not even understood this or I was not part of this, then the next other phase gets affected because of that. So all these things goes hand in hand. So collaboration goes in hand with your negotiations. So that's how your project plan needs to be negotiated correctly. Any error or that will propagate into the next phases. So that's what we see. Okay, so let's talk about the team, because that's another point we had discussion. So team building and motivation. So in my previous episode of this talk, I explained about the uh, motivation and then team building. So how negotiation and collaboration takes part of it. Because I was explaining you that there are theories of motivation. So, and then if you follow it, then that's how you build a team. But negotiation and collaboration plays extremely great part into it, as we see. Unless the project manager is negotiating with his team that you are my stakeholder, this is my project, this is our project. You are the stakeholders, I'm a stakeholder. So when this negotiation and collaboration takes place, best outcomes are possible. We have always seen that there will be hierarchies are placed. So if you get to any project or any organization, you will see the hierarchy of the structures. But modern times, we see there is a president, he identify himself as a servant leader. There is a servant leadership has taking more precedence. There is a prime minister identifies as himself as a prime servant. So they did not follow, they are not saying the hierarchy is there, but everybody in the hierarchy is equally important and they are playing their part. We have our body. Do you go with only brain? Then what about, I mean, do you want to live with brain and then you want to cut your hands and legs? See how, then do you like that kind of system? That's not possible. That's not good. So each and everybody has important part of it. They are just stakeholders. These are the collaboration and communicate. These are the collaboration what we are talking about. So even team building has, in order to induce the motivation, you need to have proper negotiation. Project manager needs to make sure that he let the team know that I am caring about you, I am thinking about you. We are working for a common understanding, common goal of success of this project, and this is aligned to the goal success of the organization. When this message has been negotiated, and then collaboration will properly take place. How the negotiation mean? Sometimes motivation is there, but everything we must know that army runs on tummy or stomach. So even though motivation is there, you need to have proper collaboration and negotiation needs to be there, and then collaboration is possible. So if properly is negotiated, we understand the interest and how it interests and how it benefits. That's how the stakeholders will be collaborating, and then that's how the reciprocation will happen and the best outcome or the synchronization will happen. So we always need a symphony so that the best tone will be produced, and that always goes with the negotiation and collaboration. Apart from leadership, motivation and all other qualities, these things will be required. If we are not properly negotiation is not correct, then if you are then we may not get the proper, I mean, good, best results or the resonance will not be possible. So all the other qualities of the project always rest on best negotiation and best collaboration. Those are the things. If you are coming into the new era of the project management or industrial era, we see a lot of different things, and there are a lot of new trends comes in. Let me give you an example. When this is the live example, we all know. So certain people, certain executives are working in Google. Now, if you think that they are working for Google, but they are saying you have hired this part of my brain, not all, because they have a great ideas and they are able to build a new product. So they are saying, okay, those are ours. How they have been negotiated. So we see this is the practical example. Then those guys create some kind of startup and then Google will actually acquire it. Isn't it the right? Isn't it the live example we've seen? So these are the examples of collaboration and negotiation because they must have been negotiated that okay, you got some ideas, correct, but we have base, you work with us, okay, you do the startup. So that I mean, I don't need to elaborate on like I don't know what, but we see those are the negotiation and collaboration has been taken place. So these are the new trends which we may not see in the previous century or other industrial areas that was not possible, but in the new tech area, new AI area, we see the different trends and new concepts. Okay, so let's talk about what are the tools and techniques of negotiation. As I told you, if you go to Project Management Institute, they have defined negotiation and collaboration. There are ITTO is there, input, tools, technique, output. If you go to library, there are plethora of books are there available. We are going to talk some one-to-one basis. So I will give you some ancient wisdoms and how with examples, how we have done the negotiation in the past and how we have done now. So what are the four techniques? I mean, there are four techniques I can tell you about negotiations and collaborations. Okay, so let's start. First technique. First technique is always communication. It has been followed from the ancient time till now. Every negotiation and collaboration is bound how the communication takes place. I will tell you the examples. Suppose you go to the like ancient times, there are kings and dictators. So what you say is not important, how you say is the important. That's what we see the example of Christopher Columbus. He was saying correctly. He was supposed to be the admiral of the sea, and then 30% of land what he acquired and all kind of things. Those are the normal things. Every other knight has got those deals, but there were debates were going on because how he says it was the important. Probably his I, as per the books what we see or what the stories we heard, probably how he sees probably was seen very negatively for some reason. So even though it was correct, but uh, so it is important what you say and how you say. So communication needs to be uh, exemplary and suiting to the requirements, suiting to the audience and the negotiating parties. That's how it takes place. So uh, communication needs to be handled. That's the backbone of any negotiation and uh, collaboration. If communication is not liked, and then things will not proceed. So or even everything is good, negotiation doesn't take place. So communication is the ancient idea about uh, it should be handled well. So there are various techniques of influencing using communication, and you need to understand the what you when we are talking with communication, what the other party is. You need to understand what are the beliefs or what are the how they what are the practices, what are the trends, especially if you are discussing or communicating between different things or different uh, regional things. Then those things are prime important because that's how the communication on that point, you can win the communication. I mean, on that communication, you can win the deals, or negotiations are best handled if you have those kind of understandings. So that's always there. And that's also ancient technique. The first technique is communication. So how sweet or I mean, how sweetly or how nicely you present, and how correctly you present uh, with ideas, and with your substance. It needs to be value inside it. It needs to be shown correctly. So that is going to win your negotiations, and then the collaboration will take place. All right. So second technique of negotiation and collaboration is cost. I mean, you are asking what we are talking about. So examples as usual. We know first 13 colonies, there was a bitter war was fought. Plenty of bloodshed happened. And then 13 colonies came. Those were 20% of land. What about next 80%? Rest of the 80%? They were won with collaboration, negotiation. Entire Louisiana purchase. It was negotiated, collaborated, and it costed. We think that, I mean, that cost with today's rate looks small, but at that time it should have been a great cost, correct? So it will cost, but it avoided all the bloodshed and waste of resources, isn't it? Because that would have cost anyway. So best negotiation, first technique number one went well, then second technique is cost, because that's how you win actually the deals. So if that's the examples we see, entire Louisiana purchase, California, Texas, Alaska, they were all negotiated, and it costed, but best outcome, there were no wars, so that was a great advantage. So cost will be always there. That's the second technique. Third technique of the negotiation. It's a really not really uh, it will be always there. So even we like it or not, but it will be like a coercive way. So I mean, if you see Apple and Samsung and all other phones, so they have actually collaboration in them. All the car dealers, Toyota, Ford, everything, they have collaboration in them, because we understand if they made a difference, or uh, any infighting will collapse, market will might collapse, because collaboration will go best. So it's like other way around. If we don't collaborate, then I mean, do you want to great fall, like do you want to do Humpty Dumpty fall, or we collaborate and then make things better? So it goes like those techniques are more coercive, and that tells you, okay, I mean, if you don't if we don't negotiate or collaborate, okay, I mean, things will not be right for any. I mean, that's how those negotiations are, and we see correctly. So that Apple CEO, because that's like such a huge company, so they have to negotiate, or they have to understand that there are different section, and they negotiate the different geographies, so that the things goes well for everybody. So that's the third technique. So it's not only phone or cars. Even we see software manufacturers and uh, computers manufacturers. All the major things, they will have this communication and collaboration and negotiation. That's the third technique. So fourth technique is probably, um, I mean, it's a more about uh, how to explain about it is like uh, let's take a practical example. So before I explain, so like NVIDIA CEO was taken over by OpenAI, right? They when that was getting launched, they suddenly, so it's like infiltration, what you want to call it, if you want to put it that way. So people do that. I mean, those kind of techniques are there. Those are ancient techniques. So we always see those things happen. So in the current era, project area, also we see that. So it was not only ancient thing, but even today's thing, we see that. Like this CEO goes there, but they will say, Elon, you are in space, you are boring our tunnels, you are running our cars, you are sending the satellites, then give that OpenAI to us. So it went like that. So or take this tutor to you. So those kind of things will be, those kind of negotiation will, infiltration techniques will might take place. So that's another ancient technique and then still used today. All right, so we saw the ancient wisdom, then we give the practical examples, and uh, we try to relate to the new era and then new AI concepts, how we negotiated and why we do that. And so I think it was good. So every negotiation needs to be with one goal. Do you know what the goal? Win-win. That should be the goal, because that's the best outcome will come. If you go with the win-win goal, best negotiation will happen and best collaboration will take place. Your goal needs to be clear. If you go with win-lose, I mean, that's a some concept is there. Like, I mean, like, okay, we lose and then you win. I don't want to elaborate more on that. But win lose or more below that, I really lose win or lose those I'm not going to discuss about more about it. They do that scorched earth and all kind of things are there, but those are not really I suggest, or I'm not going to elaborate. Win-win, that should be the best technique, and the best outcome will come if you go with win-win, because then you let the other person know that I want you to win, because that's how I will be winning. So that will give the comfort level, and then best collaboration, and then best synchronization, best resonance, best symphony. That's the win-win situation. Negotiation collaboration doesn't stop on individual level. You must negotiate and collaborate for you, your family, at your work, your organization, with environment, with our mother nature, our earth, our we must understand that all these things, the great culture, what is developed here, if we want to become type 1, type 2 civilization, we can send this to the entire universe. Universe is so big, and we don't know how many similar cultures, like I mean similar type, like humans are like a carbohydrates, so they live in this type. But we know there could be different civilizations are possible. Those are like silicon based civilization, for example. We are carbon based civilization, because carbon forms the chain, and then using carbohydrates, our body is all carbohydrates, all the living things are carbohydrates. But because they use the chain, what carbon creates chain with other elements, same does silicon, but that will happen at different temperature. So we don't know that under temperature may be great civilization, but that operating on the thing which we don't understand. So they may so when we want to, the cultural exchanges needs to take place, or our culture needs to survive and go to the space, then we need to best negotiate with all these things. I hope you like it. Please do let me know your feedback, and your comments are always welcome. Thank you very much, and have a great day.